We begin tonight with disturbing news of what must be one of the most difficult problems a family can face: a violent child physically attacking one of their parents or their carer. It's something which can leave victims in a desperate situation, and in London it's happening more often. The number of offences by children against their parents has doubled in the last 5 years. One mother tells us tonight that she considered taking her own life after months of being attacked by her young
Was
son.
sitting at my desk at home, working. It was a Tuesday, and I got a phone call, and it was 11 o'clock in the morning. And I was signed up for, was going to be my first time. I did what like every foster parent says. I'm like 1 kid, 0 to 5, blah blah blah.
Okay.
About 3 kids, a 2-year old, a 7-year old, and a 9-year old, and I had 30 seconds to say yes or no. So I said yes. In that 30 seconds, like my heart like raced, and I was beside myself. I was like, I don't know what I'm gonna do with like all of a sudden, it was me and my dog, and now I was gonna be like mom to three.
Three. Right.
And when they finally arrived and they stepped out of that car, they were the most beautiful children I'd ever seen in my life, in clothes that didn't fit that, but they were gorgeous. And um I did everything that I thought was the right thing to do, like I was very like, welcome, and this is the living room. This, gave them this, would you like to see your beds and your bedroom? And they got very excited about that because I had found out pretty quickly from them that they'd never had a bed. They'd never
Oh,
slept in a bed
okay.
of their own their whole life. They mostly slept on floors. They were placed with me in August. By the following January, not that January, like a
Okay.
year.
Like a year and a half or so?
Yeah, they wound up getting well, the boys were TPR'd. And they didn't TPR the
And
2 year
what is that?
termination of parental rights.
Okay.
Okay. So the boys were up for adoption, and since everyone had different biological fathers, uh they all had different paternal family members. So they wound up taking the little girl away from us and placing her with an aunt that she had never met, and separating her from the boys, which I have a ton of opinions on, but it really damaged the three of them severely. I mean, they were already dealing with trauma, complex trauma, um, attachment disorders, loss. I mean, severe loss. I mean, think of all the siblings they lost. Think of the, like severe loss, and then they felt like, well, at least the three of them were together, and then they took her away, and it just destroyed them, and her. But so I wound up being given the opportunity to adopt the boys. A lot of psych, uh, ER visits, a lot of acute stays, a few long-term stays, um, homicidal, attacks. I don't know what else to say.
Now, what would those look like?
Um, the use of knives to try and stab and kill. So
Each
I
other or you?
both. So we had to turn into a house where all sharp objects were locked up. at all times. Uh, Chemicals put in my drinks, um, physical aggression between each other and against me, severe rages that would last for days. People on the outside world don't really understand usually when I say rage. They think, a kid with a temper tantrum. It is
Mhm.
so much more than that. They become extremely destructive, aggressive, the screaming, the bang, the self-harm while it's happening also, banging their heads against the wall, against the corners of dressers. So now you're taking dressers out of the room to try and keep them safe. Threats of killing themselves if they don't get their way, that always have to be taken seriously. My one son would, get belts and, tie them around his neck and, say he's gonna hang himself from the bunk bed. So then the bunk bed has to come out. And so then
Goodness.
and I have to lock up the closet so he doesn't have access to belts. Um and it becomes a point where everything is locked up. Every room is behind a lock and key. Every knife, every scissor, every cleaning product, their clothing, their sheets, their bed types, their furniture, that you almost go to like their room has nothing left in it.
So when did you start seeing all of this happen? Like day one?
No. So with my youngest son, who, came to me at 7, but we'll say 8 because it was 11 days before his birthday. He was the charming, adorable, cute, manipulating, triangulating. Everyone fell in love with him, but my gut told me no, like this isn't right. Like he was, you know, he was almost like he just acted like it was all okay. Like he was immediately family. He was my son. He was like it's just not,
Okay.
that's not normal. Everyone thought that, everyone was like, the 9-year-old, he's going to be 10, he's got, he's anger, he's quiet, he's da 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 da. And I was like, yeah, it's possible, but like he's just quiet. Like, and that I would be too if somebody, took me and put me in a stranger's home. What if I just lifted you up, put you in another home, and told you, this is your husband, these are your children, that's your dog, this is where you sleep now, this is where you eat now, this is what you cook, this is the kind of food you eat now, and just said, and now, and like you live there, and then I just left. Like, how would you react? I didn't really see anything with my older son
Mhm.
um right away. I kind of felt like his, you know, quietness or standoffishness was like no, like that made sense to me. My mother was just like head over heels for my youngest son. Head over heels. And I kept telling her, I was like, you think it's him? And I'm telling you, it's gonna be him. Like he's gonna be every gray hair on my head. My youngest son started with the lie, like the immediate lying, stealing. He got very frustrated that I was the one person he could never con. It made him angry. So
Okay.
he, going to school and, I signed them up for Boy Scouts and he's doing and soccer and baseball and like you name it, like we did it, and then I'm finding like he's telling the school that I don't feed him, and he's, so he's conning the lunch ladies out of giving him free food, and then I'm getting called up by the cafeteria, getting cursed out by some woman I've never met. And like she just like really cussed me out and told me what to buy bread on my way home. And then like hung up. But I was like, this kid has everyone con. He had his soccer coaches con that he needed new cleats. I mean, I just bought the kid cleats. I mean,
What did he do with the cleats? I could see eating the food.
destroyed every pair of shoes because he loved whatever I got him, but then he always wanted something new the next week. So he would purposely put holes in them and then go to teachers or coaches and say, this is what she makes me walk around in, where to poor to get new shoes. He had all these, and he had everyone on the hook. That's what I call it. Like all these people on the hook. So he was constantly coming home with new shoes, new sneakers, new cleats. And I'm like, where the heck is all this coming from? And then I'm finding out like the stories he's telling. And like I'm calling him out on it as he's showing me this stuff, and I'm finding tons of stolen property in his room. And so every time I bring it to his attention, he's enraged by it. And so this begins the rages of that would go on for days. He could rage for 3 days straight.
Okay, so you have to, what does that look like? Because I want people to understand what it looks like.
Screaming at the top of his lungs with almost no break, while also taking moments to attack, to destroy things in the home, the doors, the walls. He'd start fires. He would intentionally break things. Like, I mean, in 1 week, he broke the water heater and the HVAC system, and the water heater wound up coming through my living room ceiling. I mean, when I tell you that was an expensive week.
This is the story of a mother who was nearly killed by her own son. Before he was jailed for 12 years, Helen gave the court this impact statement, describing the terror she had felt during the attack, that she thought she was going to die. Now she wants to speak out about the taboo of child-to-parent violence.
He went wallop straight round my head and face. He had a knife to my throat and pointing, one in my back. 4 hours I was in this kitchen by then. Eventually he let me out, got through to the lounge. He said, sit on the rug. And as I sat down on the rug, he come behind me and he was strangling me. If he hadn't let go when he did, I wouldn't be here at all.
Helen's son Sean had just been released from prison for attacking her 2 years earlier. His violent behaviour had started as a child. Schools, doctors and social workers couldn't help. Eventually, she gave up asking. We asked police forces to tell us about violence to parents at the hands of their child or stepchild of any age. 92,000 calls were recorded in a 3.5-year period. 11 forces could tell us homicide figures, and at least 48 killings were committed by the child or stepchild of the victim, known as parricides.
I've spent 10 years trying to defend myself from 2 boys I love unconditionally. People don't understand because I don't know exactly what it is. If it's because I adopted them older, like maybe if I adopted them from infancy, people would have more empathy for my situation. But I more get the like write them off, like whatever they're, or during some of the later years when my close family started to actually believe me, which took a long time. I would like they say things like send them back, like send them back. These are my children. They're send them back where? What are you talking about? And that's not and I just have to make it very clear because I tell all my families, I said in no judgment of anyone. Some adoptions have needed to be terminated. And I don't judge a family that does that. I was threatened. I sat for 88 days one year believing I was going to be arrested every day for 88 days because I brought my son, who tried to kill me and his brother, to a psych hospital, ER, acute. They agreed that it was severe enough that he needed to go to a higher level of care for a long-term solution. It was near Christmas. They couldn't find a bed. So like less than 24 hours after the psychiatrist in charge told me how severe my son was, less than 24 hours later, I was called and told, he's fine, come pick him up. Like, this is a kid that just less than 24 hours ago, you told me was so severe, needed a higher level of care, 24-hour supervision in a locked facility. And you're calling me this morning, telling me it's fine and to come pick him up. So I said I wasn't going to pick him up, which I knew was dangerous. I knew it was putting me in danger. And so, of course, they had to hotline me. And so CPS got involved, and I spent 88 days with my son sitting in a chair in the ER while I stayed in communication with him, and I had my other son, but here was the threat. I had to bring him home or I would be arrested for abandonment.
Do you think there needs to be more help though?
There does, yeah.
More understanding of this
Yeah.
as an issue?
Yeah, there is. There needs to be more put in place and support for families.
I eventually won. A bed was found. He was accepted. It was approved. He was about to move in. And so CPS said, "Oh, his insurance, his Medicaid is no good anymore." So just to get back at me. Just to get back at me for fighting and winning. Every time I made a video and spoke out about it on attached families, I could mark it on the calendar. I could tell everyone around me, I promise you my stipend won't come in this month. Every time there was, oops, if there's a mistake, we'll get it fixed. Their behavior was severe. So my oldest son is now 20. He's just one. You can't correct him in any way. Had to walk on eggshells, or that would set him off, and he'd go into a rage, and I would be physically attacked. He would go after his brother, and when we wound up moving on, because I was by myself with them for most of this time, and then in December of 2020, my brother had moved down and he bought a generational property so that we could both be on the same property to help take care of my parents as they were aging. worked out for the time being, because I had to sell my house to keep paying for things that the boys needed. Um, and so this it's 3 a.m. We're Italian, so Christmas Eve is the celebratory time for us. All the company is gone. We've done all the traditions, and now we're just like putting the presents out before everybody goes to bed and crashes, kind of deal. And my father had just had his 5th spinal surgery in 2 years, and had just gotten home from the hospital, and he's in his wheelchair, and he says to my oldest son, who's putting presents up on the fireplace. I mean, I was in the same room. I literally heard the exchange. And he said, "No, but I think she wants yours on the left of the fireplace and your brother's on the right." That's all my father said. And my son went into a rage and like went to go after my father. I got him out of that room while, of course, he's punching and kicking and head banging, and now you have to realize this is a 19-year-old man. This is no longer a 9-year-old boy that even at 9, it was hard for me to physically control him in a rage. And by that, I mean, so he wouldn't harm himself, and I have therapists saying, like, just give him a hug. Like, I'm like, well, you've never seen him rage. If you think I can just give him a hug, when he rages. But
Did he ever go into those episodes, either of them go into those episodes around anyone else?
Rarely, but yes, my oldest.
Okay.
I mean, if I didn't have videotape, I still don't think that there'd be people to this day that would believe me. My own family didn't believe me until we all moved on the same property. And by didn't believe, I don't know, they never grasped the severity of what I said. Instead, I was being judged and shamed and blamed for what they saw as my parenting when we were in front of them or others. Meanwhile, I'm walking on glass. I'm terrified of stealing. I'm terrified of them hurting someone else. So, I'm labeled like this crazy parent who has these perfect, charming, respectful, sweet, smiling, adorable children, and you don't light up when he walks in the room. And I'm like, what part of you tried to kill me right before we came over for dinner did you not understand? Like, sorry, I didn't light up. What part of he grabbed the wheel while I was driving and opened the door to fly out of the car on the highway? Are you not understanding? Like like these are not easy things for me to deal with, and I'm having, before the adoption, I'm being told just love them and make them feel safe. That's why they're acting this way. They're just testing you. And then I'm told, well, all the behaviors will stop when you sign the adoption papers, because then they'll know it's their forever home.
Since June of this year, we've seen a doubling of referrals from the previous year.
They say child-on-parent abuse is such a new concept that it hasn't been clearly defined yet.
Until that happens, it's kind of, and parents have really very few places to go to get support.
That night I got hit in the head with an ice bucket because I took them on a ski trip just to celebrate the fact that we signed the adoption papers. We went on a Boy Scout ski trip. Every good time. It became a, you know, learning through time that we couldn't have big, good times. So birthday parties kind of stopped and it just became cake and coffee with the family because neither one, neither one of them, good times, calm times, they had to create chaos. I live in a constant state of fear. I have, thanks to my brother, a large screen TV that hangs over a fireplace that shows cameras of every piece of my property so I can always be prepared because I'm terrified of them coming back to do something not good.
Listen.
You call the police and they come and they think that a sit down chat of listen to your mom, bud, is gonna fix something. Or I remember one cop told my son to do 10 sit-ups. Like, what the hell are we doing in America? Because we sure as heck are not teaching accountability. I don't care if he's 15. He needs to learn that this is not acceptable. I'll never forget the first time, like he was bigger and he had kicked me so hard that I went down and he was kicking and punching me and I was screaming and crying and he just started to laugh and he goes, "Oh, what are you gonna cry like every girl who gets punched?" And I was like, who am I raving? Where did that come from? Like, we don't do that. There's no, and why is this okay coming from my children where my entire life I would have never let, nor would any family member or friend let a man put his hands on me like this. But because they're my children, not only is it okay, it's somehow my fault. I'm to be shamed and blamed for their behaviors that no matter what I do, no matter how much money I spend on every treatment I look into over a decade and nothing works, I'm shamed and blamed and put into isolation for so many years out of my own guilt that this is how bad it is in my home. I mean, no one got it. I've lost lifetime family members and friends because they judged my parenting, but they didn't know what I was dealing with. And whenever I tried to share, I would get, all boys do that. All kids do that. No. Yeah. All boys might steal something once, or all kids might steal something once. It's not 24 hours a day. Yes, kids might not like the answer no and get mad and go to their room and slam their door. They're not going to destroy the entire home, and I'm not going to have to be afraid for the next 24 hours that he's going to friggin' beat me up or try to kill me. So you start to walk on glass and you start to develop what I can only assume at the time was the growing PTSD that I now live with constantly. I am this empty shell of who I used to be. And still, I would give anything to hug my children. I miss them terribly because when they're not raging and they're not stealing or being destructive or sneaky, those small moments of time, of laughter, of snuggling on the couch watching our favorite show at family time and playing cards on the weekend, and it wasn't all bad. And I do love them. And I'm not doing this PSA for sympathy. I'm not doing this PSA to hurt my children or anyone who didn't stand by me through it because they didn't understand. I'm doing this because I learned, well, I knew in my heart while sitting in the corner of my bedroom crying one day that there was no way on earth I was the only person on earth going through this. And that's where attached families came from. And so I speak out today, not to hurt anyone, but to definitely raise societal awareness that this is happening in thousands and thousands of homes, and no one is helping us. Everyone is blaming us, and something must change. And until society actually grasps it, which I get is hard. I get it because I was society a little over 10 years ago.
Mhm.
You know, I can go put myself back in the shoes of who I was. And I would have said, they're kids. How bad could it be? Just like society says. I would say, look at them trying to blame the victim. Those 4 children were abused and neglected, and they're victim blaming. Who doesn't think that adoption is forever? How dare they dissolve that adoption? I'm sorry. I didn't know that people were required to live with their rapist for the rest of it. You know, like, I mean, the stories I've heard from families, and I didn't mean to chuckle at that point, but like, just, I mean, it's so absurd. Like, you don't know what's truly happening in these homes. And mine is a lower spectrum. So I look at this complex trauma that causes, and I personally bundle it all into complex trauma. Like, you could have 37 diagnoses. I'm not talking about the diagnosis. I talk about behaviors. So if you have a lying, stealing, aggressive, destructive, raging, a physically abusive, homicidal, self-harming, animal harming, fire starting child, whatever the diagnosis, doesn't really matter. So I kind of just coupled it all into complex trauma, something happened to that brain. Then I believe it's on the spectrum, right? Like you have these kids that, are here and they just cause some really bad things within the home and the family, and they definitely need more help because they're aggressive and they steal and they rage, da, da, da. And then you go all the way up here to like where they're actually killing the dogs and stabbing the mom and dad and shooting them and killing them and raping siblings and killing siblings and da, da. So we're on a spectrum, I like to say, but at the end, we're all dealing with the shame, the blame, the isolation, the impossible, severe behaviors that society just doesn't get. And I always go this way. Like, it's so funny to me that we can talk about an adult that does something severely awful. They somehow always trace it back to, oh, and when they were a kid, they harmed animals, they started fires, they this, they that. And that makes sense to everybody. Everyone's okay with that. They're all like, oh, well, we all know that's where it starts. But when you're in that moment and you're saying you have that child doing that, no one believes you.
So what do you think, what would you have needed 10 years ago?
Honesty. Absolute honesty. Some training on what the red flags to look for were. Not to be told that love was going to fix it all. Real support. Sent to somewhere like attached families so I could talk to others who were experiencing it. Trauma centers created across the country because our children don't fit in the mental health box world. So if they're not so depressed that they're suicidal, or they're not pacing constantly because they can't get their anxiety under control, that's what the youth PRTS, that's psychiatric residential treatment centers, or RTS, residential treatment centers, were basically made for. So the staff, the therapists, they're not created to help with healing of complex trauma. I do believe that there is a way to help healing. My dream is that everybody in this country stops using trauma as a buzzword, or trauma informed as a buzzword, or stand on a stage and claim that they get that mental health in this country is an issue, or this system is broken. If I hear the system's broken like one more time, I can't. Let's freaking fix it. Okay, let's stop talking about it's broken at the water cooler and then walking away and going about our day. I don't want the broken system. I want the completely, I don't want to fix the system. I want the system freaking changed. And I would love to see them have neurofeedback, biofeedback, somatic movement therapy.
Okay, so explain what each one of those are.
Okay, so neurofeedback works with helping retrain your brain. So, okay, let's get. So everybody knows that you know the plasticity of the brain, like the brain, just because a connection or whatever wasn't made doesn't mean it can't be made. So what happens with these children who have experienced either a traumatic birth or it could even happen in utero. Let's say it was a dangerous pregnancy, or and so the adrenaline and all that stuff going on in the mother's body that affects the development of the baby's brain. That's why everybody tells, a pregnant woman, you have to be calm, you have to relax, you have to don't get so stressed out. It's not good for you, it's not good for the baby, because it's really not. Or it could be, you know, it doesn't necessarily have to be the parent abused or neglected their child. That just happens to be the cause 98% of the time. It does happen biologically, and I just need to say that because my biological family, since there's so small amount of them, because it is rare to happen biologically, they feel that they get left out. So I need to make sure that they know that I hear them, I feel them, I love them, they matter. But for the most part, it's kids who have been adopted, kids who have been in foster care, kids who have been through severely traumatic situations. But it's not one trauma is not what causes complex trauma. Like one trauma causes PTSD, and we all understand that. But complex trauma is something that it doesn't end. Like the stress keeps happening, so those connections in the brain aren't made, and it's mostly the frontal lobe from the research that's been done up until now. And so there is a ton of data from like back in 1940, which makes me angry because like that's how long we've known. We've known since then, but we still haven't done anything to change how we treat it. Almost 100 years later, like that just ticks me off, but whatever. So neurofeedback works with, it puts neurotransmitters like on the head, and you either play a video game or you watch a TV show or a movie while it's happening, and if your brain is reacting in the proper way, you get like full screen, full speed, da da da. If your brain starts to lose that connection, the screen will get small, the game will stop, the TV show will stop, and you have to figure out how to make it go again just by sitting there using your brain. So it helps build the connections in the brain. And then biofeedback is another thing that goes by like your heart rate. So like that you could be playing, the kids could be playing a video game or doing math problems or da da da, and it only works if they can keep their heart rate and breathing under control. So they're going, and then they start to get frustrated, and so then it doesn't work. So they have to learn how to calm themselves, self-regulate to make it work. So these are just examples of things that can be put in place on in a long-term solution to help actually heal the child.
Tell me a happy memory.
Lord, a happy memory. My youngest, a kid's smile really lights up a room. I remember there was a time I used to say, if I hear one more time, but he's just so damn cute. But he really is just so damn cute. But I think Oh God, I miss snuggling with him on the couch so much. I really do. There's many. Like it's not that it's hard. It's not that there's not one to choose from. It's hard to choose. And that's another real point that I want to get across in these videos is that I I love my kids. So as awful and exhausting and terrifying, not only have the last 10 years been, but that I still am. And my health has been so affected by it. Took this amazing horse and buggy ride around Nashville, and just seeing their faces was a moment I'll never forget. Their their moment in time of seeing their beds for that first time, and realizing they had a bed to sleep in, taking them to Walmart the next day so they could each pick out their own comforter set, whatever they wanted, and decorate their side of the room the way they wanted. And so we had pirates and dinosaurs, and they just couldn't believe they could pick out their sheets and their comforter, and that it was their bed and their closets. And uh then they'd never seen snow before, and that, taking them on that first ski trip with the Boy Scouts, and them getting out of the car and seeing snow for the first time in their life was so amazing, because I'm from New York, now I'm down in the Carolinas, like, it doesn't really snow here. I mean, we've had a couple in the last 20 years, but I'm from Long Island. So, snow for me is nothing, but seeing it in someone else's eyes, your children's eyes for the first time. I remember very early on, had to be the first couple of weeks that they were with me, and I don't know if we had watched a TV show, or someone had a baby, or they heard me on the phone with someone. I don't remember what caused the conversation, but I remember my youngest son saying that, other than with uh my 2-year-old, my little girl at the time, that we missed all the first, like I wasn't there for their first word or their first step or their first this, da, da, da. And I remember looking at him and I was like, you're right, we did, but we'll create our own first. So that kind of became like this, like our family motto. Like, we would, every time we would do something new, it'd be like, that's our first. We created our family first. So,
Okay.
they'd never been to a restaurant with a cloth napkin. I mean, and
Mm.
gosh, not that I took them to a pizzeria, an Italian restaurant. It wasn't this fancy thing, but they used cloth napkins. It's like they learned like what a cloth napkin was, and we had to put it in their lap, and da da da. And my son, and they both looked at me and they were like, "This is another first. Look, we're making first memories together." So like we did have so many wonderful moments. I took them to see the ocean for the first time in their life. Again,
Oh,
from Long Island. I lived on an island. The ocean was everywhere. And I took them to St. Louis. I took them where like Nashville. Like we traveled. We went to Washington D.C. I brought them to all of the amazing monuments, and when we did Reads Across America, I volunteer for that. We do that every year. I taught them about the importance of God and the importance of uh, respect and valuing our veterans, and those that gave their lives for us. So every year, in December, we put a wreath on all the graves and of veteran cemeteries, and those are the things that I guess I've been trying to spend the last couple of months not thinking about, because it's hard, but for some reason just now it was okay. So thank you.